Hey YouTube, this is VoidRaven5829, and I'm going to be finishing up my list component series with this video. I'm going to be going over fortifications, formations, different detachments, and lords of war. Alright, so fortifications are really good for a static army. Uh, most of them are buildings, and they either provide direct buffs or shooting output, such as the Hemotrope reactor, increasing the size and power of plasma weapons. You have the defense fortification, such as the Aegis defense line, which gives you a nice cover save for anybody standing behind it. Or you have the line of sight increasing fortifications, like tall bunkers. And the final type, I guess, would be the fortifications that have weapons of their own, like the Plasma Obliterator, or is it Plasma Destroyer? Either one. Or the crap. The Fortress of Redemption, with all of its missile silos, or the macro cannon with its D cannon, etc., etc. So fortifications and the type you choose largely depend on what kind of static army you have. If you have a more gunline army, where you have your guys just sitting back, throwing large caliber shells or lasers at your opponents, I would go with a line of sight blocker, or a line of sight increasing, like bunker or tower, because that'll help you be able to find more targets for those guys to use. Another, if you have a more not quite static gun line, but you have your general troops that you need to protect a little bit better than their standard armor, I would go with an Aegis defense line, because of the cover bonus you get from it. If you go to ground, you get a 2+ save, or other trench networks, like the Wall of Mortars trench network. It just flat out increases the survivability of your dudes, or leadership as well, for the Wall of Martyrs. If you're taking a fortification for the big gun attached to it, I would suggest making sure you have a squad that can stand on top of it in order to defend it better, or to just use it as a taller platform to get more shots off, such as using the macro cannon, because it has an attached rampart on it. Throw like a squad of Devastators or Havocs on it in order to protect it with your own troops, as well as to give them a better line of sight. It's kind of a blend between the other two. And so again, just use fortifications for static, because they're not going to usually improve your mobility, unless of course you're taking a lot of deep striking stuff or any kind of reserves. Fortifications can generally come with a comms relay to let you reroll your reserve rolls, and that can be a really big game changer to ensure you have your reserves come in on turn 2, instead of having them spread out on turn 3 or 4. It just helps you get your reserves into the fray faster. So that would be like an Aegis defense line with a comms relay and like a small garrison of dudes to make sure you control that comms relay, is a really big bonus if you have a large reserves count. Okay, so that's fortifications. Formations are groups of units bound together to get certain bonuses that generally try to improve their damage output or survivability, and just use the existing models that you have in order to increase them. For example, I like to use the Fortos, which is 3 soul grinders. And that's because if I just took an additional CAD of demons, I would have to pay a tax in the form of Nurglings for the minimum troops and a Herald for the minimum HQ tax, just in order to have soul grinders to work with. So I take the formation of the Forge Host to get just the soul grinders, and it gives them a nice buff in re-rolling to hits and to wounds if another soul grinder has already killed something. And those rerolls really do help because it essentially twin links all your guns and gives them all shred. And getting that for free it's pretty amazing for what you're doing, and it doesn't have any tax units at all and very little restrictions. I like to use my formations specifically to give bonuses to models and units that I'm already bringing. So I like to bring formations for the Forge Host. I also like to bring the Cult of Destruction, because the bonuses that the Warpsmith can give to my Mutilators. But again, the Warpsmith itself, it's kind of a tax because he can't deep strike with the Mutilators. So they have to walk or go into transport, or a fortification with an escape hatch upgrade. But that adds more tax and etc. etc. Formations I use like an elite slot. I use them to have a specific purpose in mind, with minimal tax units to optimize the bonuses the formation itself has. So I just heard about a Tempestus Scions formation, where you take a Commissar, a Tempestus Scions command squad, and then just Scions themselves. And as long as the Commissar is alive, the Scions, when they die, can automatically go into ongoing reserves and come back every turn. And that's really cool for recycling. But the guy that I listened to pointed out that the command squad is really a tax. He also had to take a Taurox. The command squad and the Taurox themselves are tax units because they're not directly affected by the formation's bonuses, and they don't have any part in it. They just kind of sit back and hopefully defend the Commissar from death, so you can keep getting that bonus. Anyway, so formations, at least to me, you really have to outweigh the bonus versus the tax, and hopefully the tax isn't too great that it costs too many points and like really waters down the force you're trying to exude. At the same time, you don't want to take a formation that has a really weak bonus that you could get from other sources for less tax. So really in formations, the tax itself is the make or break of the unit of the formation itself. At least that's it to me. Like I said, I use formations specifically to upgrade models and units I'm already bringing. All right, and then detachments. So there's 2 different kinds of different detachments from the combined arms. There's either a force organization chart mix-up. And like this is like the Dark Eldar one. I don't remember the name of it. I think it's Real Space Raiders, where they get an increased amount of fast attack slots, and that's because the Dark Eldar army really likes to make use out of their flyers, their Scourge, and their Reavers, and they could really use those extra fast attack slots. Orcs have a similar one where they take 3+ units of troops and they get an extra HQ slot, and that is a really big boon for orcs because they really rely on their HQs to make sure that their dudes survive, or to increase the damage output through either a KFF Big Mech or a Pain Boy. It's just really helpful to have those extra slots if you need them. The other type of detachment alteration is the Decurion style, which is a detachment of formations. And these are really powerful, or at least they can be, because not only do you have the benefits and bonuses from the individual formations, but if you take a certain combination of formations, you get certain bonuses from the Decurion style. Like for example, Necrons, if they take their actual Decurion, they get a +1 to their reanimation protocols, which is it really increases the durability of their troops, of actually pretty much everything that they have. And that's something that the Necrons really use to leverage themselves into a win, is their lack of dying models. And so, again, since it's a formation of formations, you really have to outweigh the bonuses and the taxes. If the tax models are too expensive, too much dead weight, change the flow of your army and the maneuverability of your army too much, then they will weigh you down and make sure that you kill yourself. You self-implode. Like for example, the Orc detachment, the Orc Curion, as it's called. I think minimum points, it's like 1,100 in that ballpark points without upgrades. And to be honest, at least in my opinion, that is just far too many points to invest in the startup cost of a Decurion. It's too many trash units all thrown together. There's not really much synergy in it. It's just a big blob of extra orcs without very many upgrades and bonuses, in comparison to like Gladius, where you get free transports, or the Necron Decurion, where you get +1 to your Feel No Pain, or it will not die. Will be back. That's the one. And so since it's just a really big formation, you really have to look at all of the taxes from all of the formations and the Decurion itself to make sure you're getting the best bang for your buck. And so finally, on to Lords of War. Lord of Wars are generally the big centerpiece model of your army. I don't really play with them. I don't really have much experience playing with them. But from what I've seen, and from all the battle reports and everybody that brings in Knight in their Lord of War, Lords of War are really good at drawing fire to themselves, like Wraith Knights, Knight Titans themselves. It's Lords of War are really good as a way to distract your opponent from shooting your little dudes, as a fire magnet, and just as a way to frustrate your opponent into wasting all of their time and energy into taking out this big thing, as opposed to like playing game style and winning the objectives. That is how I've seen Lords of War used, just as a gigantic distraction to keep your so that you can make sure that you achieve your goals in winning the objectives. Some armies, in particular like Eldar, have what the community generally label as undercosted Lords of War, like the Wraith Lord. And like those are direct additions onto their army that they're going to be making a lot of use out of. And so when it comes to Lords of War, you really have to make sure that the rest of your army complements your Lord of War, so that you're not just wasting a good third of your points or less, a quarter to a third of your points of your entire list on a Lord of War that may or may not just die turn 2 because you didn't support it well enough. So like I said, I don't have very much experience in Lords of War. I can't give too much direct advice. I just know that people use them as distractions, so try to avoid them. If you're playing against an army with a Lord of War, try to avoid the Lord of War as best as you can, through cover, through massive saves, and just generally just try to survive it, and don't lose your head, and make sure to play to the objectives, and don't let your opponent get into your head about that. All right. So in conclusion, fortifications, bring them if you're bringing a static army. Formations, bring them if you're already bringing the units, so that you can get a direct bonus to those units. Decurions, again, make sure the bonus outweighs the tax, so that you can optimize your army as much as you need to. And for other CAD modifiers, make sure that you play to that, because they're supposed to be playing to your army's strength. So try to play with that, and make sure that you that you're able to make a full use out of that CAD reorganization. And then with Lords of War, either you have them or you don't. Either ignore them, or and play to the objective, or you have enough firepower to take them down, in which case, good luck and awesome, you know. All right, so that was the last part of my components of a list series. I'm going to try to wrap it up by adding on another video that does the list checklist. It's the itemized list to make sure that you have all the support and model mass and everything else you need in order to take down a general all-comers list. All right, so this has been Void Raven 5829. Thank you for listening to my series, and I'll see you again.